Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Happy Friday. We will start in just a minute or so. Love to give people time to get settled in. If you're here, we would love to hear where you're watching from. So if you feel like dropping a comment in the chat, let us know. Oh, my old pal, Christopher. Morning, Christopher. And my beloved Sarah, middle sister, amazing human. Good morning, sweet. This is great. That makes me warm inside to have you two on. Where else are people watching from? Oh, wow. Good evening. Just going to say I'm really excited about this webinar today. Our special guest and co-presenter is a visionary, and I'm really excited to introduce him shortly, as well as a really spectacular member of our WideFoc.us team. So it's going to be quite the interesting webinar today. Lots of practical stuff, lots of mind-blowing ideas. And I always like that balance. So we'll start in just a second here. Please feel free to add in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're calling from, if you want to share. And we're going to get rolling. Katie, I think we should probably just get started. Awesome. Welcome to Wonder Twins Activate. That was my cheesy idea as a child of the 70s and 80s. I loved the Wonder Twins. I thought they were ridiculous and awesome, always forming into different shapes and forms. So today, next slide, please. Today, we have two incredible presenters, very awesome people with lots of knowledge. Chris and I met probably a few months ago now at a DigiMarcon conference where we were both speaking. He was speaking on this just amazing model that they have created at Boulder SEO Marketing. He's going to tell you more about that. And I was presenting on using social media content for AIO. So we really had a lot of things in common. And his two presentations really changed the way I look at what we do and just look at the world. I'm still kind of processing all of the information that was provided then. So really thrilled to have Chris on today. And then Jenna from our team, she is one of our community managers at WideFoc.us, and also a stalwart presenter on these webinars. Her focus, although she does quite a bit of B2C community management with our clients, she also has a really deep B2B background, and we love having her here for that. So we'll bring them back on in just a second. Super briefly, before they get started, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to have Chris talk. And I mean, take notes. I don't know, like there's going to be so much information there. It's going to be really interesting. I'm going to help you kind of maybe digest it at the end. And this will be available to rewatch later, but he's going to walk you through their GEO content strategy. And just to get this out of the way, AIO, GEO, AI, SEO, these are all terms. Who knows which one's going to emerge as the predominant one, but we're using them interchangeably today. So he's going to talk about that and about how AI generated content really increases your search visibility, improves your SEO. And then we're going to bring Jenna in to talk about how taking all of that AIO, very specifically structured and written content, how to move that into the social media area to make it engaging so that humans want to read it and engage with it and want to be a part of your brand. We're going to do a quick talk about paid social as well, because that's an important part of the whole puzzle. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions and would love to dig in there. So we're going to leave plenty of time for that. Really briefly before we do that, just a quick pitch on WideFocus, and then I'll leave you alone. I started the company way back in 2007. We've been in business for 18 and a half years, and we work solely on social. We make sure that your social media is engaging, is consistent, is strategic, and is bringing people all the way down the funnel, from really strong organic content that is scroll stopping and it gets picked up as for AIO and is building trust and awareness, all the way to paid campaigns that are driving conversions, leads, and all of that stuff. So at the end, there'll be some contact info if you want to reach out to us. We generally work with medium to large size businesses and nonprofits who are looking to make sure their social media is not just building top of the funnel awareness and generating thought leadership, but it's really driving sales all the way down the funnel. And now even more is really working within those AIO parameters. All right, so let's get rolling. We're going to pass it on to my good pal, Chris, who is about to teach you all kinds of really great stuff. Hey, Chris.
Cool. Hey, Eric, thanks so much for having me. And man, I didn't know, like, your company is older than mine. I started mine back, I think, in 2009.
Oh, wow.
So that probably also means that we're very old, right, in this age of digital craziness and AI. But I am so excited. Finally, something is changing, right, in our space with AI. So this is what I'm going to talk about here in this part of my presentation. So we started as a local SEO company, thus the name Boulder SEO Marketing. And I think my first client was a company in Israel. So much for that, right? Then made our way back from international. Then we took on national clients and then local clients. And now we're back to, I prefer to work with local clients, local service businesses, because that's what I am. That's what my company is. We're about 16 people here at BSM. We are pivoting from just being an SEO company to be an AI first agency. We have built our own platform, AI platform called BSM Copilot. You can go to bsmcopilot.ai to learn more about what we're doing with AI. But essentially, as soon as ChatGPT launched in, I think November 1st, 2022, a lifetime ago, I got obsessed on how to integrate AI into our SEO methodology. And I'm thrilled to announce that I think we have figured it out for now. So if you just do a quick Google search for the search term SEO price guide. If there are sponsored results, you should see a guide that I wrote, that my AI wrote. So this is what we do now, right? We heavily are leveraging AI to achieve incredible results for our customers, creating pillar pages such as this SEO price guide. That's just the beginning. We then deploy a very sophisticated GEO, that's my preferred term, GEO strategy. And at the very end, a few pieces of the puzzle, that's social media, right? So my team and I, we do social media because we have to. It's a very important, piece of the entire puzzle, but we do it for SEO reasons only, primarily. So if you want to work with somebody that really understands social, work with WideFocus, right? So I'm going to show you how we do social media as part of a GEO strategy. All right, next slide, please. All right, here's what I'm talking about, right? If you do a search for that SEO price guide search term, you should see something similar like that, where our guide is being shown in the AI overviews. Nearly 60% of all searches on Google now result in them showing you AI generated content at the very top, right? That's just the reality that we're living in. So Google is keeping more and more traffic on their website. Traffic, organic clicks are declining every day as we speak. So it's getting harder and harder to get people to your website. So this is what we do, right? We try to get our customers into these AI overviews through the content that we develop with the help of AI. All right, next slide. All right. So we work, as I mentioned, primarily with local service businesses. It's like what what both Eric and I run. So what I care about, leads and sales, right? That's the lifeblood of a business. If you run a local service business, or I guess any business for that matter, you care about leads and sales because that keeps the lights on. Generating leads can be extremely expensive. Not everybody is good at generating leads. There are different ways to generate leads. Let's take a look at cost-effective ways to generate leads for your business. Let's take a look at the next slide here. All right. And I hate to admit it, but according to the research that I did, social is actually beating organic non-paid search by a little bit, right? But I have to admit, if done right, social can be an amazing lead generator for your business. And that's why I'm so excited to be here to team up with an expert, like Eric and WideFoc.us to talk about these strategies. So this is what we're going to talk about in this webinar here. Absolutely. If nothing else, if you do this yourself, you got to do social. You got to do it the right way. And you also should do organic search engine optimization. All the other digital strategies to generate leads, they're pretty expensive. I have a marketing budget. My marketing budget would get eaten up by these other ways of generating leads. So I highly recommend, if nothing else, do social and organic to generate leads for your business. Onward. All right. So why are social and SEO the wonder twins? Well, it's the least expensive way to generate leads for your business. If you do a search for SEO agency Boulder, right there, Google will usually show the local map pack for a search term that describes a service or a place like mine and a location. Okay, you'll most likely will see the local map pack. Google will show 3 initial businesses in the map pack, and you have to click on more businesses. Okay, so in my opinion, Google Business Profile, that sort of falls into the social category. This is very important that you show up there in the map pack. As you can see there, my business is showing up in my personal Google Business Profile. So we're dominating that space, right? And then if you go down, you'll see the blue links. Obviously, we're an SEO agency. We're pretty good at this stuff. So our website, Bold SEO Marketing, ranks at the very top. And then guess what? Even before our first competitor in the blue links, our LinkedIn company page is showing up organically as the second search result. So this is why social and SEO, they're truly interconnected. They are the wonder twins. And if you team up with companies like, WideFoc.us and BSM, this is what's possible. My goal for our clients is that we dominate as many spots on page number 1 in Google. Why? We're going to get more leads. It's as simple as that. That's why social is so critically important. I can only take up so many spaces with my website. Google will usually only show 2 links of the same website. So I'm limited by how many spots I can take up, right? That's why social is such an incredibly important part of your overall digital marketing strategy. Next slide, please. So SEO has evolved. I don't even call it SEO anymore. Not too long ago, all you had to worry about was Google, right? The dominant search engine, 90+% of a market share. Then all of a sudden, GPT launches, right? Now we have AI search engines, large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, etc., etc. And guess what? More and more people are now using social platforms as their preferred search engine. Think about YouTube, right? LinkedIn, TikTok. This is stuff that Eric and his team is going to talk about here in this presentation. But these other search engines, so to speak, they're so critically important. And it goes back to who is your target audience? Where are they hanging out? Where are they getting information from? So SEO has evolved tremendously. I call it GEO, generative engine optimization, and I'll show you the method to the madness in a second here. But this is how it works now, right? Let's dive a little bit deeper. Next slide, please. All right. So the reality is that people now go to ChatGPT, right? And then if you do a search on ChatGPT right now for who is the top rated SEO agency in Boulder, Colorado, this is how we talk to these large language models. It's not just SEO agency Boulder, right? We actually converse with these platforms. Boom, right there, right? You want to be shown obviously at the very top in these large language models. And social is such a critically important part to get into these large language models. Why? Because these tools, they feed on obviously websites and other digital platforms out there. But a very important part where these platforms get their information from, social media platforms. In fact, YouTube is now the most cited source in many of these AI platforms. So the better your social strategy, the better your chance that you're going to show up in these large language models. You're not going to believe it, but we're now getting, I would say, 30 to 40% of all the leads that we're getting derived from large language models. Obviously, we track everything. I ask people, hey, how did you hear about us? And they're like, oh, I found you on ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. So even though our social methodology is not very sophisticated, it does the job for now, right? Onward, next slide. All right. I'm not going to, believe me, my goal is not to confuse you, but this is a very simplified version of how our GEO, our AI SEO methodology now looks like. So when we talk with new clients, if we take on new clients, we take a look at, what existing pages on their website are currently underperforming. That's my preferred way of doing a GEO strategy. We use tools such as SE ranking. That's one of my preferred tools where we can scan a website and take a look at, oh my God, look at this page. It's already ranking for social media company Denver, all right? But it's on page 2, right? So we take a look at that page, let's say, or let's use, SEO price guide, okay? That was actually a page that we went in and optimized. We ranked on page 2 or 3, I think, in Google. It was a guide that I had written many years ago. We then apply our what we call micro SEO strategies methodology. That's the many boxes that you see there on the left side. I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you do a search for my name or just like Boulder SEO Marketing webinars, you can sign up for webinars where we dive deep into that methodology. Essentially, with the help of AI, we're creating the best piece of content on the internet in relation to closely related search terms. Then our BSM Copilot tool, automates everything. Essentially, we create the best piece of content on the internet in relation to search terms that people type into Google. And then our BSM Copilot tool will then also automatically create content for social platforms. Again, it's done for SEO. I'm not extremely proud of some of the content that we create. I would say it's good enough, right? But it's not something that WideFoc.us would create for you. However, it does the job, right? It's good enough. And this is basically in a nutshell how GEO works. Next slide, please. A critical important part of our GEO methodology is that we now create virtual clients, virtual brains for all of our clients. I'm going to show you Virtual Chris. It's a project that sits currently on top of Claude, which is, I got to say, my favorite large language model. I've been feeding Virtual Chris with all of the knowledge that I share through webinars, speaking engagements, etc. I basically create transcripts and then feed it into Virtual Chris. Let's take a look at it. Let's go to the next slide. So this is basically a project on Claude. It's very easy to set up. It builds a memory over time on how you engage with your virtual you. Obviously, you have to put in very sophisticated instructions to tell it. It's like, hey, you are Virtual Chris. You're a copy of Chris Rolfe. You need to do this. And then if you right there, the files, that's what I call the sources of truth. After every call, after this webinar, I'm going to take the transcript and I'm going to load it into the right file so that Virtual Chris can retrieve the information and help me basically create AI-generated content that will rank at the top in Google. I think that was my part, unless there's another slide for me. So this was just a very brief introduction to generative engine optimization. If you want to learn more, just Google my name, Chris Rolfe, and you'll find me. I'm all over the internet, and you get to talk to the real Chris, not the virtual Chris. All right, Jenna, over to you.
Awesome, thank you. I'm happy to meet virtual Chris and real Chris as well. But again, thanks, Chris, for kicking us off with GEO. But on top of GEO, I really wanted to get into AIO and how to stop that AI slop cycle. And I'm sure you've seen it before, where you've seen a social post scrolling through, whether it's your business feed or even your personal feed, and you're like, I've seen that comment, I've seen that post a billion times before. And that's kind of what we'll be talking about today. How to avoid that cycle and what's the importance of adding human touch to it. And then we'll also talk about engaging posts, how to actually use these posts to engage people. And then we'll also talk about paid as well. So we'll head on over into the next slide. So again, to kind of think about it, GEO gets you visible in search, but AIO makes sure your content gets in front of that visibility. So your content is being visibility and it actually performs, because it's about creating AI optimized content that's earning the attention, it's building trust, and it moves people through awareness, consideration, and hopefully conversion as well. Because that's when paid support is already working. Scaling content that's resonating, putting it in front of the right audience. And as you might already know, AI generated content is super, super powerful. It's a type of content that gets you seen. It's value packed, it's filled with keywords, and it's structured to clearly answer questions your prospects are asking on those AI tools. It's organized, it's direct, and it's optimized for how search engines and AI platforms are processing that information. And because of that, It performs really well in search environments, and it helps you position your brand as credible and discoverable. And to think about it too, these posts aren't typically the ones that are going to get tons of comments, tons of likes, or even tons of sharing. And you don't have to think of it as a flaw. It's just a difference in purpose. And we'll talk about that in upcoming slides. You can't really think of your AI visibility posts as the end all be all to your social media content strategy. It's a really important puzzle piece to that, but it's not the only thing that's going to, push those people to convert or, show more interest into your brand. And this content is crucial right now because you do need it in order to show up. But it's not the same thing as engaging content. They're both necessary. As I said, AI visibility is, again, all about visibility. It's getting you in front of people. But engagement content is getting you to connect with those people and trust them and eventually convert. And the strongest strategies make room for both of those. And then we'll head over to the next slide. So we talked about AI visibility in posts driven for AI. Again, those AI posts are going to be formatted in a specific way where you have those keywords, and it's going to be formatted in a super digestible way so that AI can read it. If you think about it, those posts are getting read for AI by AI. But now where comes the part in your social strategy where you want humans to read it and humans to connect with it? What do you do there? AI content helps you get visible, but now we're going to the engagement side of things. People don't convert because you answer their questions clearly. They convert because they trust you and they're familiar with your brand. And they recognize your name and they feel familiar with their voice. And that's why engagement drives a super critical part of your content strategy. You want your content to feel human, to feel timely. Of course, social media is still social media. You want it to be timely and you want it to be relatable. And that's the kind of content where it sounds like a real human wrote it. It's not just a system searching it for search or a system optimizing it for search. And a lot of things I see, especially as a community manager, engagement style content, some people might think it's fluffy or it's, the filler content, but it's still super intentional, even if it's a lifestyle post or an educational post. And I'll, talk about those examples here. It's almost just as much weight as those AI optimized pieces of posts too, because it's still supporting what you're putting out into the AI, universe, but it's still really enforcing who your brand is. And that's the most important part of your brand, is building that trust and building credibility. You're doing that through those engagement style posts. And that might be the thing that, moves the needle with your prospects. And some things that you might consider for like engagement or engagement style posts is things that are educational. This can be tips, carousel style posts. So anything that kind of moves through, tips and expertise focused education. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a CTA post. Even, for example, infographic styles or carousel styles, people are actually scrolling through, or even short form videos. Reels are perfect for Instagram. Things that show more than just what your brand is and what you're doing. Again, certain types of educational content. It doesn't necessarily have to be, your products and services over and over and over again, because your social content isn't just a business card. It's you're putting your expertise out there. And showing your expertise, one, brings yourself into credibility, but two, it adds, personalization to your brand too. And those posts still hold just as much weight as those AI posts as well. And that also includes like leadership posts too. A lot of people tend to forget about that. And that works really great for like B2B brands, especially with LinkedIn. You can take curated content, put your own like expertise, brand and tone and personality on it. And that's still a really valuable post because you're bringing your brand and expertise into it, but you're also giving other people credit for it too. So it's not just like the you show. It's not just a business card as another social post. It still holds a lot of weight as well there too. So to think about it, not every single post needs to push a hard call to action. Some content is just built for bringing awareness and bringing credibility into that. And engagement style content gets you remembered, and remembered brands usually convert more consistently as well. And then with that, we'll head into the next slide. So to kind of think about, step one and step two, so you have AI content that's made to show up in search. So it's formatted specifically with those keywords. It's easy to digest. It's answering those questions that people are asking in AI. So it's like the AI to AI. But then you have engagement style content, which is, the fun stuff, as I like to call it. I mean, all content should be fun, and that's what we're going to get into. But what about using that AI content in a way where it feels human? Because again, I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times on your Instagram or Facebook feed. You've seen a caption you've probably seen 1,000 times. It sounds boring. It sounds sterile. It's the same format you've seen over and over again. And the really important thing here is building on that visibility is where that human layer comes in. And a really good practice to use AI to get the point across with that formatting, those headlines, those keywords. But it's really about reading it back. And it's kind of that simple. You read it back and you're like, would I actually write this? Have I seen this 1,000 times? And you can ask yourself, it might technically be a solid post or a solid content, but it doesn't sound like you, and it sounds like something you've seen about 100 times. And that's when you start to rewrite and reprompt and you smooth out those super obvious patterns. So if you wouldn't say it out loud, you probably shouldn't post it that way. And the thing is, well, you can still use AI to use that formatting and positioning, but you're using your human self to edit that to make it even better. So even, for example, when I write social content, and this varies for any industry, any type of, client or community that you're working with, there's a mental checklist of words that you should avoid, or even the things that you just see over and over again in your, if you're using ChatGPT or other AI tools. Am I asking myself, is this M- necessary? I'm sure we've all been there. Is this M- needed? Probably not. Did you see the word ever evolving? I'm sure you've seen that when you're writing a blog post or a long, content piece. Am I overusing a word? I know specifically ChatGPT loves to repeat itself. So if you have that like refined eye of what you're seeing, you can almost see those patterns, and it's easier to get rid of those things as you're kind of going through that flow. And when you start to spot it everywhere, you get a better eye of what to look out for. And that's not like a roadblock. I think that's more of an opportunity, because you're using AI to find that structure and you're organizing those patterns that you're seeing. That's an opportunity for you to go in, add your brand voice, add your positioning, maybe even add a little humor to it. That's still super important. I know if you use AI tools, it doesn't really have that much of a sense of humor. I know most of you do. And that's an opportunity to make yourself stand out, but still using the basics and the structure of AI to get back to still getting seen. So you have more of a leverage where, yes, I have all the things I need to use for AI. Yes, I also have a human touch on it. And then we'll go into the next slide, and I wanted to give you a good comparison of AI copy and how to fine tune it. So for example, I put in a ChatGPT, write me a post about wide focus and what we do. And I'm sure you've seen this type of piece of content 1,000 times. Social media isn't about posting. It's about, and then it goes into it. So you're seeing the isn't, the is, and I'm sure you've seen 1,000 times before. They always have like that one standalone sentence, and it's just boring. Like nobody wants to read this. And it says, at Wide Focus, we do X, Y, and Z. Now that's a really important part too, because we talk about Wide Focus and we talk about what we do. You have keywords in there. That's easy to read. But it's just boring. Nobody wants to read this. You might have to rely on a graphic, and maybe that doesn't even perform well. It's just, quite frankly, AI slop. But it shows you an idea of what AI is doing to your post. Again, it's putting the content in there. It's formatting it a certain way. It's putting those keywords in there, but it's not quite getting the engagement or that human touch. And if we go to the next slide, you can see how I kind of repositioned it. So you can see here in the first line, like I've immediately added a hook to it. I've already added a little bit of sense of humor in it. So the first line says, if the current social media plan is to post a few times and hope for the best, you're in good company. That's relatable. There's a hook there. But then it also goes into a little bit more about what we do. And you can see in the third line, we still keep that same format about who we are and what we do. So you can see how it keeps the structure and the basics of what we do, but you added a little bit more to it. For example, I told ChatGPT to take out isn't is, to take out the word actually. You can see in here there's no M dash either because you don't need it. But you can see how easy it is to just kind of move those things around when you start to have an eye of what works and what doesn't work. And it just makes this a little bit more easier to read, a little bit more relatable, and it has a little bit of wide focus humor in there too. Because again, that's what social media is all about. It shouldn't just be, what we call the post and pray method, where you're just, okay, I have a ChatGPT prompt and it looks fine to me. Let me just post it and hope it gets engagement. And that's not really working anymore because everyone's doing the same thing. Getting back to it, that's the opportunity for you to make your content more human. So if we go into the next slide, you can see like a comparison here. The first post that ChatGPT gave me, and then when I actually went in with my human edits and my human eye and took out those kind of boring non-necessity things here. And then on to the next slide. So again, kind of thinking about what we previously talked about. So we have AI content, structured formats, keywords, great. Engagement content, keeping it engaging, adding some human touch to it, and then adding on to that to our AI content. So you're not in that regurgitation cycle where AI gave me this, I put it out for AI. You're actually, adding some human touch to it, and it's still connecting with people, but doing the things you need to get surfaced in search tools. But of course, how do we put paid behind it? Paid social still matters in all of this. Because you have this organic content that's building trust and it's building credibility, and that includes both organic content, the engagement content, and AI optimized content that helps you show up in search. But both live under organic, both matter, and really one helps you get discovered and the other one helps build those relationships. But organic alone doesn't guarantee the right people will consistently see your content. And that's usually where paid will amplify that. So paid social is how you make sure your content gets in front of the right people, not just say your current followers, but maybe new prospects who actually match, say your ideal customer profile, instead of just relying on the algorithm, which I know many of you who are, in social media, the algorithm changes just by the second. So not hoping that the algorithm posts it and magically someone, comes up on your social media and it's like, oh, perfect. Of course, in the perfect world, that would work. But it's really about using paid social and being intentional about who sees it. And when you're using strong AI optimized content, that's where the paid social really kicks in and really clicks, because that AI is helping you create content that's built to perform. It has those stronger hooks. It has clear messaging. And of course, hopefully you're using your, AI, brain where you're changing things to make it a little bit more human. Paid is amplifying that strategy, what's already working with your organic content, and scaling that. So you're getting clicks, you're getting engagement, and you're getting traffic there. And that's really how your content is turning into results. So that AI optimized content is helping you show up. And engagement driven content and organic content is still there to keep building that credibility and that trust with those who are showing up on your social feed as well. But brands that consistently show up in AI tools across social platforms aren't separating these strategies. They're just layering this with paid together to drive visibility, credibility, and revenue, essentially, because that's, again, the most important part. You're using this to, leverage prospects at scale, essentially. And to kind of wrap this up, and I know Eric will probably do a better job explaining all this, but I wanted to kind of bring it back just a little bit because I know that was a lot. So again, you can kind of think about it as I have AI optimized content. I know what it needs to do. It needs me to show up in AI search. I know it needs to have, a certain structure to it. It needs to have those keywords, but I still need engagement to have that extra layer, that, puzzle piece of bringing in credibility and trust. But again, I don't want that AI optimized content to be boring and look like everyone else. That's an opportunity for you to go in and see, it's really that simple. Taking out that M dash, making a first sentence funny, things like that, where you can still leverage that AI optimized content, but still make it work for you and your brand, so that you're still standing out amongst other people who are just essentially posting and praying. And then on top of that, that's really, really valuable content you can use, and you can put paid behind it and amplify that in front of the right audiences. And that's where you really begin to scale there. So I know I talked a lot, and if your brain's full right now, I will hand it on to Eric.
Great, Jenna, thanks. No, I'm just kidding. Awesome, Jenna. I love that. It was so interesting, and you provided, again, a lot of stuff. And I'm going to help you synthesize that a little bit. But first, I was going to do a super quick recap. So we started with Chris, who talked about the way that the content you create you need to create lots of it that's answering the questions that your target audiences are asking, and that you're distributing it out, right? It's on the website, it's a blog post, it's an email. It shows up on LinkedIn. It shows up in podcasts that you do. Like all of those things are going to help you just be picked up, indexed by the AI search engines and showing up in summaries. Great. That's really important. But when you have all this content, the next thing you need to do is to humanize it, right? For social. I can't tell you how many times I've seen social media posts that have the word actually, that actually works. We've actually outlawed the word actually in all of our social media posts for all of our clients because it feels AI and it's way overused. We have a whole list of AI indicators that we use when we are copy editing all of the content that we're writing for ourselves and for our clients to make sure that those constructs and those words just don't keep repeating again and again. You saw in Jenna's it's not about this, it's about this. That happens every time and it's tired, it's awful. There's also the from this to this to this, we find. So get all those constructs out of there. Get the words like actually that are extraneous and don't feel human out of there. I say keep the M dashes because I'm an M dash guy, but use them sparingly and intelligently. But make your content engaging. And especially on social media, you are still, yes, you want it to be indexed. I thought Chris did a great job of explaining how the social media content that they're creating isn't for people, it's for the bots to pick it up and to use it. So you still need social media content that humans actually read, engage with, find interesting, because that's what's going to get them to give your products consideration. And then finally, it's so important. Organic reach on social is less than 1.5%, which means you can be writing and creating kick-ass content and nobody's seeing it because you're not putting money behind it. We like to put paid campaigns behind engagement, which is targeted post boosts and sponsored content. We put money behind brand awareness campaigns to improve your reach and get more impressions and more visibility with your target audiences. And then finally, whereas I always say where the rubber hits the road, website clicks campaigns, lead form fill campaigns, conversion campaigns. You can do kick-ass social, but if you're not putting paid or putting a budget behind it, it's very likely that nobody's seeing your stuff. You can get some little viral reach here and there, some quick hits, but if you really want to use your social all the way down the funnel to consideration and purchases, it's really important to put some money behind it. Doesn't even have to be a lot necessarily. So there's your kind of wrap up of what we talked about today. Before we go into Q&A, and I'm really excited to hear what questions you have, two things. One is Chris wanted me to, and we'll put this with this webinar, so when we're streaming it, you can find this, but Chris has a March 25th AI SEO webinar, and also he's moderating a free AI SEO and GEO online summit on April 1st. So you can find those at Boulder SEO Marketing, but we'll include the links here as well. We would love to hear from you what the next webinar should be for our next quarter, because we're always looking to create webinars that are worthwhile to you. All right, so before we go to Q&A, really important. That was a fire hose. There's another cliche you'll see on AI. Before you do anything else, I want you to right now write down two things that you found useful today, two practical things that you thought were interesting and relevant and something that could be applied to your job, to your brand and your company. Once you've written down those two things, I also want you to commit today to write down one thing that you can actually do after this call, before happy hour, before Friday, before the weekend starts. Write down something actionable that's worthwhile to you, that you're not going to look at and keep adding to the to-do list week after week because you actually don't want to do it. And there, see, I use actually way too much as well. But write something down right now that you can do, put it on your to-do list right now that you're going to do today that's going to move the needle forward in what we talked about. And then finally, if you're able to, write down 2 more things that you can do this coming week. Because I don't know about you, I love watching a webinar and I learn from it and I take screenshots and then I kind of forget, or it sits in, I have my preview windows on my Mac are just full of screenshots of stuff that I never do anything with. So if you can add 1 to 3 things to your to-do list today, at least you can keep the momentum going. All right, that was a lot of us talking. Now we want to hear from you. So take it away. We would love to have put it in chat, give us some questions, and we'll take it from there. Christopher says, thanks for the virtual Chris via Claude and the ChatGPT LLM tells and how to address them. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Christopher. We appreciate that.
So thank you for that comment. If you do I actually did a standalone. I do a weekly AI SEO tip and Friday SEO tip. Again, just do a search for my name, Chris Ralph, virtual Chris tip. You're going to find more information. This is shockingly easy to set up. So I encourage anybody to do this right away. That's one of these action items from this webinar, from my point, right, that you can implement like right now. My virtual Chris has been trained over the last 9 to 12 months. I could not live without virtual Chris anymore. My wife hates it because I talk more to it than to her. But it does the trick. And by the way, an example that I didn't mention in this webinar that I tested with social and SEO. If you do a search in Google for Kilimanjaro, Serengeti, Zanzibar planning guide, you'll find, I think toward the bottom of page 1 in Google, a LinkedIn guide that I created over the weekend using Virtual Chris about the trip that my wife and I did. It ranked in less than 24 hours at the top in Google. Guess what? Social platform, right? I'm taking advantage of a social platform that I know Google loves. And with the help of Virtual Chris, within 20, I want to see how fast could I get this piece ranked via social for this webinar. Man, crazy.
Yeah, I do recommend you subscribe to Chris's Friday emails. We use them all the time. They're super quick, they're easy to understand, and Katie and our team, who I need to thank for producing this webinar, she does an amazing job every time, has been using those to help improve our website. We have our, what we call the WideFoc.us occasional email that comes out pretty much once a month that you can also subscribe to. But this weekly email, it's so good. And again, it's content, right, that helps them rank. Any other questions? Hey there, Marco. Glad you made it. I have a question for Jenna, and she doesn't know I was going to ask her this question. Jenna, when you first started using AI to write your rough drafts of social posts for us and for our clients, you and I started to really have, at first we had to edit the heck out of them, right? Really make them sound more human, and there's still that piece to it. But how do you keep track, or what do you look at specifically? Can you give us like one example or something of how you look at content that you started out with AI that you've made more human?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it. Like if you go into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a social post about this, you're going to see a pattern eventually. At first, when anyone starts using AI, you might not immediately pick up those patterns that AI is giving you. But the more you use it, the more you're going to see that repeatable pattern over and over again. Like for some reason, ChatGPT just loves like that one short sentence before a social post, and that drives me personally crazy. It's like it's not getting the point across. Other things too, like the word actually, it's just there's almost no need for it in there. There's some words in there that are just not needed. They're just superfluous in my opinion. And it sometimes just doesn't get to the point of what you're trying to say, which is, probably the most important part of your social post. You're trying to get the point across without it just being like keyword, slop, but making it, meaningful. So normally what I'll do is I'll give it a couple of prompts, make it work over and over again. And it's kind of like learning how to use the AI tool too. So you're not just giving it all this feedback at once. It's almost kind of going, one-to-one. So like take out the short sentence, take out the word actually, change the tone, maybe add a little, humor to it, etc. Of course, you're probably going to want to use your own humor versus AI humor. Because if you've seen some AI humor, it's not great. But it's just kind of that, like at first you won't really see the patterns, but when you start using it more frequently and more on a regular basis, you'll start to see the same, output over and over again. And that's when you can really leverage that and say, okay, I don't want the, the short sentence. I don't really want the word actually over and over again. And then you can also tell there's sometimes where it repeats the same word like 4 times in 2 sentences, and that's just a little ridiculous.
That's a big pet peeve for me is like when our copy editor knows never to have a post with the same word more than once or twice, because it just it does something to me in my old writerly authorial brain. So cool, thanks Jenna, that's awesome.
Of course.
All right, we have 3 quick questions. One, and this one's for you, Chris. How would each of you, and we're going to leave this one to Chris, how would you rank the importance of SEO, AGO, and GEO in 2026 from 1 to 3?
Awesome. And by the way, those are awesome questions that are coming in. And I'm actually going to talk about all of these 3 questions because they're all interconnected. So let me address it. Yeah, let me start with question 1, and then I'll explain the other questions as well. Perfect. Okay. So it's no longer 1, 2, or 3. In my opinion, it's GEO. That's what we do. So we're no longer an SEO company. If you don't want to just waste time, money, and resources on doing certain things, you got to do GEO. We see incredible results for us, our clients. My personal website, the Chris Ralph website, increased organic traffic by 1,000%, Bold SEO marketing by 200%. Since we started to do this for ourselves with clients, we see, not as good results because they can do this unlimited, right? But we do GEO. So I would advise against just doing SEO, right? You really have to do GEO. Then, what platforms do we use or should you use as part of your GEO strategy? Well, the Reddits, right? Every search in Google, there's a Reddit, discussion going on. Then think about it this way. So Google, they love to make money. Okay, in order to keep people on their platform, they now have to bring in these other search engines so that you don't go to Reddit to do your Google search, right? So what they do, they bring in other search engines and they evaluate what is the credibility of these search engines, right? They cannot just bring in XYZ search engine where somebody's just posting spam, because then people will leave Google, and Google does not want you to leave because they love making money, right? So think about what are the most reputable search engines, social media platforms where your customer is hanging out, right? So that's what you need to create content for. As I showed you with that, Kilimanjaro, Serengeti, Zanzibar planning guide, LinkedIn is a trusted search engine that Google loves. 24 hours, I'm on top. Think about it this way. Just do a Google search for what you want to rank, okay? And then see what is showing up on Google. Google's not going to go away. They still have a 90% market share. Just do a Google search, ideally incognito, to see what other search engines, discussions, forums, etc. are popping up. That's where you need to be. How are you going to track that? My favorite tool is SE ranking. Reach out to me. I teach a master's degree for university, and SE ranking is giving my students free access. So I can give out I think a month-long free trial. So feel free to reach out if you want to take advantage of that free trial. They have a pretty cool tool in there that is now more accurately is tracking how you rank in, large language models. Yes, awesome questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to shut up. Over to you.
Yeah, Christopher, you asked any difference between YouTube and YouTube Shorts. I think it's really more about frequency, right, Chris, than which of those. It's just more content that's getting out there that's optimized for the things that your target audiences are looking for.
So yeah, we're luckily at a great marketing team. I do a lot of videos, right? I do webinars, like long form, evergreen content. This is going to be relevant for a while, right? Then I do podcasts. I do these Friday SEO tips, and we test. We create shorts. Some are taking off. Like, I don't know why, nor do I care to know why, right? I need my marketing team to test that stuff. Essentially, my question is, you got to do a lot of video because it's going to get you into AI search. It's going to benefit your entity. If you can associate yourself with high quality content that's out there on YouTube and other, video platform, very beneficial. And then just test, see what resonates with your target audience, and then do more of that. That's how I approach it. Yeah, I'm not a video expert. I just test and see what's working.
Yeah, I always say we start with target audiences and business goals. Everybody on the team's heard me say that a million times. It's really knowing who you want to reach and where they're already gathering, right? So if it's B2B, LinkedIn is probably your best bet, but also if they're Gen X and boomers who are decision makers in those companies, they are all over Facebook. So there's room and there's reason there to engage with them. Also, this last year, Google finally admitted that they are indexing Instagram for AIO and for search. They're seeing it as authoritative content. So you need to be both where your audiences are, so you're engaging with them, and where the AI search engines are indexing, which is pretty much everywhere now.
And then, by the way, sorry to interrupt, I just put the trial link for SE ranking into the internal chat. Great. So if you guys can please share that with the follow-up email to the audience so that you don't have to email me.
You got it. And I will say that we have been playing with it, even though we are a social media agency. We are now definitely a GEO agency as well, to the degree of we take the content that and the planning that an SEO partner like Chris provides our client, and then we turn that into quality social. So we are now really keeping track of how that's ranking and what's going on there, which content we need to focus on.
Absolutely. And then, sorry, before we end, why don't we do a part 2 of this webinar where towards the end of the year, you're going to be on my show. So we'll do part 2 that's more SEO focused, and you get to contribute in terms of, as I contributed now. Let's do that toward the end of the year, fall maybe, huh?
Would love that. That would be amazing.
Let's do it.
We're going to follow Chris's lead, and we're going to start calling it GEO. So Jenna, no more AIO. We're calling it all GEO now. We're gonna make that one rank and be the standard.
Nice.
Awesome, everybody. First, Chris, what a pleasure to have you join us today, and Jenna, as always, I love your insights. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. This will be available for streaming, and we'll reach out, send you a follow-up email. Please reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, needs, and have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.